Greetings and the warmest of welcomes to this week's ORT. So, it's been recorded as we speak, and it's probably been being recorded by the MI5, CIA, and also FBI, because there seems to be such a panic nowadays. So yes, so what was you gonna do? I mean, obviously there's one big topic, which is the virus, and we can just have a kind of free chat about it if you want to, and then see where that goes. One of the things that I did want to try and cover was, what does grieving mean in this current situation? But that can be just something that we slot in as we go along, if we want to talk about it, or if somebody else has got another topic.
I think that's an important element of it to cover, because it's pushing people into managing the situation in a way. This is not us. This is not how we would normally honor those who have passed. So I think it's worth talking about, because what do people do?
Yeah.
And it kind of brings the emotion into it, as opposed to what we touched on before about just kind of theorizing about it.
Yeah. Brother S, you wanted to say something?
No, I'm good. I'm listening to you all, and I'll move with however the ebbs and flows of the topics are. Okay. I'm good with that.
Okay. Ebony?
Yes, I'm of the same. That's fine. We will. Yeah, I'm fine with that.
All right. It feels surreal. That's what I would say first of all. It feels like a very surreal situation, because it feels warlike, but we cannot see the enemy. And, there are lots of fantasies that are coming to the surface as a result of not being able to pinpoint one person or another. I know that obviously Trump is blaming China, but if it is what we're being told, that this is a natural biological process, this is a virus, as they're saying, then to some degree the enemy, if there is such a thing, is nature. So it just feels really surreal, and being locked down and seeing empty trains, empty public transport, seeing pubs closed.
Yeah.
It feels very surreal. And added to that, not being able to see people. So I don't know. It's happening, but at the same time, it doesn't feel like it's happening.
Yeah. I totally relate to that.
I think it's something.
Sorry, Ebony, go on. Yeah.
I'm sorry, did you start? No, carry on.
No, I'm trying to piece together a thought. So yeah, you go ahead.
Yeah. I think the best way I can describe it is that it really is something that has pretty much attacked the core of human existence and functioning, because it affects everything about our functioning, thinking, psychological, operational existence as a human being on every level. On a physical level, the social distancing, the natural interaction between humans and so forth, that's interrupted. Our thought process, I mean, like Kush-I said, it's happening, but it doesn't feel like it's happening. Even though we see the big dwindling numbers around us, it's something that's quite difficult to get your mind and your thought process around. And when you think about it on a wider perspective, it's countrywide, it's worldwide, and so forth. So it's really hard to sort of like frame your mind around that and accept something like that so easily. The subject matter we're talking about here, just our functioning as a human in terms of mourning, that's seriously interrupted, and that's really it's a real challenge for our cognitive functioning as well. And again, at the core, our emotional functioning, and to like rearrange those things, it's not easy, because it's almost not natural as human functioning to lose people, or to know that we're going to lose people, not to be able to see them, not to be able to speak to them, to comfort them, and then when we lose them, not to be able to celebrate their lives or let go or come to a process, you know, go along that journey to where you accept and are able to mourn in the natural way or interact with those that share that loss with you. I think I just feel that this whole COVID, I can't use any other word other than attack. I feel it's attacked us as human beings from all dimensions, all perspectives, from spiritually, emotionally, physically. And it's a huge, so large. I'm almost lost for words. The more I think about it, the more I find it very difficult to manage with. And, you know, to some extent, it destabilizes our mental well-being, our health, mental health.
Yeah.
It's a real, because when you think about whenever there's any kind of adversity, right? The advice is always to try and pull together and to reach out and lean on one another and sort of galvanize some kind of community spirit. But when you look at the kind of terms being bandied out, like social distancing and self-isolation, they're the complete opposite of that. And that is not what we as human beings are about.
No.
I really don't like this term social distancing. But at a time when people are worried and anxious on, you know, many different levels, we're supposed to distance ourselves from each other. Yeah. It's a very, very strange way of living. And that you have people so fearful that on the one hand, people need the connection, they need to reach out, they need to be, you know, we all need to be supporting each other. But to do that is actually to put that person or other people at risk, so you can't. So it's a very, very, if it is an attack, it's a very, very clever way to manipulate people into a no-win situation. Basically.
Are you saying that the attack may be man-made?
I'm saying if there was there's a capital I if in there.
Yeah, you know what I was checking out whether Ebony was making that assertion that it was man-made as opposed to natural. So I was just checking that out.
I think I am not convinced that this is a natural phenomenon. I will say that much. I'm not convinced. Quite what the origin of it is, I don't know. I think that there seems to periodically be these quote unquote viruses that seem to appear, create a certain amount of havoc and then disappear again mysteriously. And it wouldn't surprise me at all if somebody in a lab has got the original kind of, I don't know, molecular recipe for this in a test tube somewhere. Because if you wanted to test whether or not how far you can actually control large numbers of people and entire populations, it would be a really good way to do it. It's not being done at gunpoint. It's not being done. It's a very interesting way to lock down a whole country.
Yeah, no, without a doubt.
It's very, you know.
And you know what I think is, you know, in the absence of having information and the way how some things have panned out in terms of whether the response from Boris Johnson was deliberate or not, and you know whether China was withholding information, it feeds into people's anxieties about what this thing is about. So I think that's a fair comment that you've made, Brother S.
Yes,
Yes. What do you want to say on the matter in terms of your experience of it so far?
Well, clearly everybody has been adversely impacted by the whatever it is. I at some point have got into being concerned about what it might be and why it might be so. But I'm thinking now that actually that I don't know that I'm using my energy in the best way that I can. What is clear is whatever it is killing people. This ain't no It's killing people. It seems to be killing people indiscriminately across the world. I'm mindful that I'm receiving information again through WhatsApp and coming from a place of fear and anxiety and blame, which always happens when there's grief and loss, and confusion that's added to that by people being scared and then saying, you know, I don't operate and function well this way because I need to know what it is, why it is, who's doing it, when's it going to stop, right? I don't know that we're anywhere near knowing the answers to any of those. So in the meantime, what do we do?
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to think about, should I survive this, whatever it is, about thinking about how do I make some changes in my life if I'm fortunate to come through this that will make me better for it. That's what I'm looking at. That's what I'm mulling over of an evening, right? If I get through this, and if people get through this, because I can't, you know, I think about it in the wider sense, but I can't really affect how anybody else is. For me, I have to be thinking about what is the learning from this if I come out of this, and because we can't be the same. I cannot afford to be the same after this, and so what changes can I make that will make me better for it? That's where I'm at.
Yeah, yeah. So you've raised a point there which is interesting, and that phrase has come up a number of times, that we cannot be the same. But I think back to the First World War, if you want to call it a world war. It's more of a European war, Second World War. But yet we still ended up with the greed and the individualism and the love of money and all these kind of things. And, you know, the gang stuff, the knife crime, and all these things.
Yeah.
So,
but there was a hiatus. So if you think about after the Second World War, we use that because it's in the last 70 odd years, right? There was a lull in the late 40s. There was not much happening. 50s, people had to regroup, they had to restock, they had to animate, if you like. We had to make more of us because there were so many of us that had died. And in order to do that, you had to think a bit more collectively and be a bit more tolerant. And at its height, you saw it come out in the 60s. With love and peace and them protesting against what appeared to be yet another war that was going to be, you know. And I think that though that generation is alive now and is young and has been affected by this, and they will have to definitely do things differently.
But all right, then the point, I suppose, let me clarify my point. In both world wars, for instance, if we're going to put it down to a certain demographic, there were black soldiers who fought in both world wars, and yet they were ignored. They went back to their stereotypical kind of racist description of who these heroes were, and we had to struggle as a people to even be recognized. So, and now if you think about Brexit that went ahead, there was it became racial, it became about immigrants.
Yes.
And now everybody loves the NHS staff.
Yeah.
And just the other day, they wanted people out of the country. There was a protest outside of the House of Parliament because it was deporting people back to Jamaica. But no, they love everyone. So I'm not that confident that people's memories won't be short and they won't return to their egocentric way of being. I'm not. I'd prefer that not to. But I'm just saying these were massive events. You know, the First and the Second World War in European history, and you know, people came from all over the empire to support it, but they were forgotten within a year's breath.
And I agree. Remember, going back to what you said there about they love us now, I would even challenge that and say they don't love us. They need us now.
Yeah. Well, yes.
Yeah. And from the needing us, perhaps a new leaf will be turned in that they may have to check themselves. Again, like you, I'm not pushing too many bets in that corner.
Okay.
But the idealist in me is hoping and praying that we cannot all come out the same from this. Otherwise, in a sense, we might as well have another one come this autumn, winter. Let another one come. If we learn nothing from this, and this doesn't scare people enough to check themselves, I don't think anything will. So I'm hoping against hope that's not proven to be the case.
Yeah, no, I'll join you in that hope. History doesn't give me much hope when I look at the history of how we are treated, but I do share that hope with you.
Yeah.
I think, because it's... Sorry, Ebony.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I'd like to join that hope as well, but thinking about the immediate reaction to the COVID-19 and the simple thing of people going shopping and how selfish people were to each other there, and you know, just the aggression and the selfishness and the level of disrespect to each other. And this is, you know, in the midst of it, everybody was facing the same thing, but people were very selfish in regards to sharing or, you know, enabling others by saying it was every man for themselves, and that was just on, you know, the simplest level of groceries and so forth.
But it was bestial, wasn't it? It was carnal. This is primitive, and so we shouldn't be surprised by that. Also, you know, the only the strongest survive. It's innate in us.
Yeah.
Oh no, I'm not surprised. I'm just saying I'm hopeful that people would think differently, but it doesn't bode well when that's the immediate reaction. You know.
Sure.
The thing is, though, what we all saw, the footage of people, the toilet paper wars and people ready to kill each other over, you know. But what I don't have much of a sense of is how it's impacting the younger generation, because it's what they take from all of this as well. I mean, we're seeing the behavior of some adults, but I don't really have a kind of a sense of collectively how young people are perceiving this. A lot of them are plugged into the stuff that's been circulated on YouTube and other platforms, and I really don't have a sense of how they're being shaped by it, and that would be interesting to find out.
Well, when you say the young people, it should be in a family context, because hopefully they're on lockdown, so it should be more of a case of a family-wide thing. And I mean, going back to what Ebony's point about, and Brother S's point about human nature, I guess, and kind of being just egocentric and me, myself, and I, there has been enough really for me to think that at some point they've got to get to the grips of how this society works. Like, for instance, the main barrier, our defense against such things, is our own immune system, and yet the health system is not talking about how the things that we can do to eat and develop and make our health system, our immune system more robust. They've just continued kind of
wash your hands.
And I just think it's odd. It's just odd. You know, they know that over the last 20 or 30 years that processed food has become much, much more available, and the ill effects that comes with that, that affects us. Because when they're talking about Black people being more predisposed, we were already predisposed with the diabetes and the sugar and the salt and all the rest of it. We were already predisposed. But the health argument has been lagging in terms of saying, listen, one of the best things that you can do right now is eat leafy greens and all the stuff that you'd get on kind of educational WhatsApp links. But they themselves are talking simply about washing your hands, distancing yourself, and then the vaccine comes in. And I think, well, how are we going to be more of a compassionate society when we're not even accepting that the health system isn't dealing with health?
Well, yeah, but listen, I think, yeah, I'll take your point. I'll take your point. But I think that there are some good things that can come out of this. You know, notwithstanding that point that you made, there's some good things that can come out of this. One of the things, for instance, people have to learn how to cook again, you know. Take away clothes.
Yeah.
People are, the imposition, if you like. Imagine, it's been imposed upon them that they've got to learn about the food that they're buying, how they're going to season and freeze food, how they're going to be less wasteful because you can't just chuck it.
Yeah.
In some ways, it's been great for.
But would that only work whilst it's in place, though? Because I can tell you something. McDonald's wants to open back up, and these other places they want to open back up, and you know these people are really strong. They have very strong lobby groups.
Yeah.
Of course. But in the meantime,
there's money to be made by getting people addicted to their poor diets.
Of course. But in the meantime, remember, we're talking about the young. This is going to be who it's going to impact most. For at least 3 weeks, going into the 4th week now, hopefully they've learned how to cook some things other than burning water.
Yeah.
Right? Because in the past, they would have just had their pot noodle and something that could be made in just 2 or 3 minutes because you could just stick it in the microwave. Now, because that has been taken away from them, or that option, they had to learn how to cook some foods. Now, I don't think you'll unlearn. You might get lazy, but the idea that actually you could cook something from scratch and it could taste better than a takeaway, they've been given that now. Many people will have been given that now, that wouldn't perhaps have attempted it before because it was the other way was really easy. The shop's open. I'll just go on McDonald's. I'll go to McDonald's.
Okay.
I'll go KFC.
So let me ask you a question then. I'm going to put something to you. When this thing started, and even now to a certain degree, when there was a rush at the supermarket, I go to the supermarket, I get everything I want because all I want is fruit and veg. Most people are not doing that. They're still eating the things that are not necessarily good for them. I'm not quite convinced that people want to change. What they want to do is survive and remain the same.
Well, there wasn't any, after a while, Kush, with all due respect, there weren't none of the things that they wanted left because everybody did overbuy.
Yeah, I know. But the point is, in terms of them being able to say, you know something, too much red meat, no good, this oil and all the rest of it, the bad salt and they just wanted to keep them. They just wanted to lock themselves in their house with their Netflix and all their usual food habits without having to make any changes.
I think also we're talking about people who perhaps have eaten a certain way for decades. You know.
Yes.
Yeah. Of course.
And this is really just, it's not really a lull, it's an enforced situation. And just like, you know, work like 4 days and can't wait, or work 3 days and can't wait till Friday to come. I feel like they're perhaps waiting for the lockdown to end, you know.
Yes,
you know,
exactly.
I feel like that's what's going to happen. And that said, I'm sure there will, by a law of averages, there will be some people who've made, you know, some changes in their eating habits and actually develop and so forth. But in my opinion, I think the vast majority of people will revert to form and see it as a celebration to go to McDonald's, KFC.
Yes.
I think that's true. I think that will be the game changer when the fast food places open back up.
Oh, yeah. And the pubs, come on.
Yeah. And the pubs,
Right. But that's going to be, remember, we're talking about, that's still really the big people. I'm focusing on the young people.
Okay.
Who I'm talking about the people who are non-voters as yet. Right?
Okay.
They're not have to vote, but this is going to impact them. They're going to talk about this like we talk about power cut.
Yeah.
You
understand?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is impacting them in the same way that, you know, we know from our generation that 2 generations after us, they don't know nothing about power cut.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that has stayed with us, and the frugality that came out of that, about having to learn to be more creative because power just gone.
Yeah.
And you had candles, and you had to make shapes on the wall, and use kerosene lamp and paraffin. You know, 2 generations after us, they didn't know nothing about that.
Yeah.
So,
But not to undercut your point. Advertising has become much more advanced now, and it seduces people to leave some of their kind of traditional home economic
yes,
patterns, things they used to do at home. And the other thing is, during that time, you know, at least you could have a parent at home, so you can learn from a parent. You can see a
yes,
parent doing things. Whereas now, both parents are out working all the time. So I agree with what you're saying. I'm just saying that the demographics has also changed now.
yes.
Also, as well, I just to take both your points, is that some of these creative dishes and creativities that are happening in the home now as a result of this lockdown, I think mostly is led by parents who are having to work from home, etc., etc. So when the lockdown, these parents will be going back out to work, who actually be at the centre of the home anymore, providing these, you know, cooked meals and incentives and a little bit different. So all those structures will fall down again. Fast food will be the more convenient. You know, all these things that have infiltrated the stability and structure of families and the learning and the roots of learning and so forth, they will all be crumbled again, I feel, and you know, the structures will be broken down again for all the benefits, you know, that our children are able to get from the lockdown now. I think they'll be lost.
So what is it that we could do then to, as a people, to, because two things came to my mind. One was, can people be supported around grieving online, on Zoom and stuff like that? And should we be offering, you know, all of us who are professionals in these fields, should we be doing something of that nature to support them? And the other thing was, you know, do people need to be making an oath of who to themselves and their families and their communities? And should that be something that is community wide, where they make an oath about who they want to be and going to be when they come out the other side of this?
I think yes, and you know what, Brother S has got a really good point there. And like I said, we remain hopeful for those things that he was speaking about. But I think it's also an opportunity that, like you said, we should be building something community-wide, certainly at least family-wide, community-wide, to keep some of these things in place. You know, because this community is about support, isn't it? Yeah. So instead of maybe falling back to where parents are going out to work and perhaps the children don't have that structure, use technology, like you said, Zoom, use technology to provide a community structure. Zoom has cameras if it means that, you know, somebody guiding you how to cook something as opposed to going out to take away while your mom's still at work or your father's still at work. Perhaps we should use technology to, you know, maintain some of those structures and bring about some of those changes that Brother S is talking about, and to support with mourning as well, you know. Perhaps we need to be thinking about how we can use this technology to sustain our communities and to rebuild our community connections.
It's a good point, you know, because I guess even though, yes, there's the distance, but I guess also there are other ways to be present or to be relevant or to, you know, to reach out. It's the technology is going to be really important in that, and I think that I think things will kind of, it's like elastic. It kind of snaps back, doesn't it? And everybody falls back into doing things a certain way. Yeah. But I think there is an impact, and I'm kind of seeing it around me a bit with people thinking about the whole working from home thing, right? Even though it was imposed, it has got some people thinking, well, you know, I can do this from home. So when all of this is over, and, you know, hopefully if I come through it okay, well, do I need to be getting up and leaving and going out somewhere else every day when I can do what I need to do here? You know, I could be a bit more available to my children or my family, whatever. So there is a certain thinking process that is going on.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that we haven't discussed in relation to this is that we are living in a capitalist society, and capitalism needs us to be out there spending money, going to restaurants, you know, going to work and buying new cars and new phones and new items and all the rest of it. So if the wider environment doesn't change, then, you know, that will be a massive pull factor on us.
But if more and more things move online, because we're actually seeing that you can do a hell of a lot online, then the need to physically get up and go somewhere becomes less and less, doesn't it?
Well, put it.
And I don't know if some jobs will survive it, actually.
I think my point is, we can almost predict some of the things that are going to happen, like we've just spoken about. And to use your terminology, Kindred, there's going to be a snapback. So we know what's going to happen. We know where we needed things to change in our community in regards to support, in supervision of our children and young people, structures in place to support families, community. We know what's going to happen. So I think in the knowledge of that, perhaps we need to be reframing our thinking in terms of how can we bolster and support and start building these support networks for our community and for, you know, for our families in the first instance, if that's what it is. But we need to be thinking wider because we're stronger as a community, are we not? And I think, you know, just we know what's happening now. We know what's likely to happen when things are brought back to semi-normal, because I don't think there'll ever be the change the same again. But let's think about technology. How can we use technology to our benefit, to the benefit of our children and our young people?
It's a really good point.
If things are that, you know, we won't perhaps be working in an office space as much as we did before, let's think about what we have and how we can use it for the benefit of our families and our communities. Because I think in the absence of that, we're going to get left behind and we'll be frustrated and we'll still be working in the same way. Whereas if we have thought about it, if we're moving with what's happening, we may not agree with it, but we can't change it. So let's use it to our benefit so that we can, you know, come to some sort of progression by using that.
It's true, you know. I mean, look at the guy who's doing the PE classes online, this Joe Wicks guy.
Yeah.
Who's doing that's got, I don't know how many countries that's now broadcasting to, right? This man's got a worldwide audience. So his PE classes. So could we not deliver, I don't know, Black history classes to our children?
Yeah.
There's so many, you know, the potential, or, you know, and following on from the point about cookery classes and, you know, teaching them about nutrition and stuff like that. We could use these platforms to do things in a very different way.
Yeah. And what about the point I made that actually maybe we need people to make an oath or something that who they're going to be on the other side? Do we need to do something? Because if otherwise, if you don't make that kind of commitment verbally to say, listen, you want to the X, Y, Z, who's saying it's going to happen?
Yeah. Well, I think you need to speak.
It's the backslide, you know?
Well, sometimes an oath that you make you might bite off more than you could chew. So I see with that. Right? I understand that if you think about people at the end of each year, feeling that they need to make New Year's resolutions, and we know how often people will fall off that within a month or so, or a short while after, right? And perhaps when we look back at that, we may be able to say, hey, you know, the thing that I pledged, it was too big. It was doomed to fail because it was too big. This is more about a change of life.
But couldn't people swear to be more compassionate? You know, going back to Ebony's point about the rush at the supermarkets. So it might be about doing things definitely, but how we relate to each other. You know, looking at the neighbors, visiting people type thing.
Those things are good. But I think that thing that happened in the supermarkets will always happen. It will happen again if there's a lull in 6 months' time, and then we find out in 6 months' time that the virus or something akin to it has risen its head again and plenty of people are dying all of a sudden. You don't think everybody's going to run supermarket again? too many people will, and the way in which they acted, you know, I found it perverse. But actually, when I sat down and thought, wait a minute, it's primitive, man. It's primitive. They're actually doing this because they're scared of their own survival. So survival mode kicked in. Now, when you're gonna, you know, it's a bit like having a war or starting a war with somebody and then saying, oh, but these are the rules to the war. You have to be nice when you kill everybody. And when I kill your people, I'm going to be nice. No. And then they say, oh, we'll quote the Geneva Convention. Wait a minute. It's a nonsense.
Yeah.
If war is ugly, war is hurtful, it's painful, it's cruel. There's no such thing as a nice war. So to contrive this and then to sell it to people and expect people to be well behaved after you've just said to them, everybody got dead.
Yeah.
It doesn't work. The first thing they hear is, we're all going to die. We're all going to die? Yeah, that's what they said. Oh my God, we're all going to die. What do you need to do? What's going to save us? Toilet paper and hand wash.
But here's the thing, Brother S. I don't agree with that. But here's the thing. Now that things are organised, we don't see people ripping a strip of each other. And, you know, and for me, that's the key, organised, yeah? I feel like right now we have a captive audience. And I feel like it's an opportunity that needs to be seized, that we can do something for our community, yeah? And I think it would be foolhardy to wait until things have passed over. I feel like we need to seize the moment.
Okay.
You know, build on this captive audience. And, you know, when things are relaxed, we will lose a percentage, but there's a percentage that will remain that we can continue to build on. You know, so for me, I hear what you're saying. I don't disagree with it. But the key for me is organize. Once we organize, things are changed. You know, people behave in a different way.
Yeah, some of it will. In the same way that we agree that some, you know, a percentage of people will celebrate when this is all over and they'll go and overconsume again. We know they will. And then even that will peter out. Do you see what I mean? So the instant reaction
it depends, you know, because when I was talking about marketing, it incentivizes you to behave as they want you to behave. So once they start to get back into it, the likelihood of it not having an influential factor on people's behavior is very low. This is why I'm going back to the oath and whether people need to actually make a conscious decision to say, well, what kind of person are they going to be even when things relax?
Yes. Okay. So put it this way. It's a good point. But remember, it depends on how far you want to run with this. We have all, in the last 45 minutes or so, ignored the thing that I don't even really want to bring here. But I heard people saying technology and how can we use technology. Well, there's a whole parallel concern going on around what happens when we beckon and want to jump on the bandwagon of new technology to the point where they bring out 5G, 10G, 15G, and 25G. Right? And make it sound as they promote it and sell it to us. You will be left behind if you don't jump on board with this thing. And remember, well, it's just 5G now. Remember, before the 5G, they did the same thing with 1G, 2G, 3G, and 4G.
Yeah.
Right? You will be left behind. That's how they sold it. You will be left behind. So I've been dragged kicking and screaming into the 21st century because I protested. I don't want them. I don't want it. I'm not interested. I don't want it. And yet here, somewhere in it, either indirectly through work, you had to catch up.
Man.
You had to be join in. And so that same thing, whichever G is, that's going to run parallel to this concern about are people so fickle that when the dust settles, they'll forget and they'll just revert to form, right? Even with the threat that the next G might be the one that's going to kill us all really quickly.
Yeah.
But we'll because we're fickle by nature.
Yeah.
So there's that going on, and then we're saying, but we can use the technology. Well, which technology? We don't own none of the technology. It's given to us, and then it's sold to us in a way which says, if you don't use it, you're old. If you don't use it, you're going to be left behind. So So, and as you said, we're living in the West. We're in a juxtaposition here. We've got two things running parallel. And then amongst that, we're still trying to hold on to some semblance of self-empowerment and self-worth, to the point where we can say, when I think this way, and when I, as a result of my thinking, I act now and change the way in which I'm going to be towards other people, that can be drowned by all of this stuff in the West that's there about promoting. Don't worry about that. If you want to care about and be compassionate, it's out. Go and get the thing that's out there, the new thing. Gratify yourself with that. Come on, otherwise you're going to be left behind. So I think there's multiple things, I guess, is what I'm saying. Multiple influences that are going to be placed upon us now because we continue to live in the West, and that will feel the pressure of when this thing, as this thing persists, and when this thing is over. But very much, I'd love it, Ebony, to be able to say, you know, can I, in looking at myself and thinking about, can I be a bit more this? Can I be a bit more considerate of others? Can I be a bit more empathetic? Of course I want to. That's part of my life journey. Yeah. I'm trying to evolve as a being. But I wonder about how much these other distractions and these other pressures are forcing us and distracting us and obstructing us away from being able to become better beings. You know, it's kind of buy in or you get left behind.
Yeah, and you feel the being left behind is too much of a scare tactic, a scare effect on people.
Well, what they will tell you is being left behind is death, isn't it?
Yes.
But here's the thing: we can leave ourselves behind by just sitting here and saying things like that, or we can seize the moment. We can be aware that things that are happening and take action for ourselves.
What do you mean by seize the moment? What could we do then? What's the practical things that you think could be done?
Well, I think first of all, it's about organizing. We know the things where we're lacking or we need to build stronger in our community. And Kindred spoke about, you know, a level of education for our young people online and what have you. Something as simple as that, you know. And because we're so disconnected, we're even further disconnected at the moment because we can't physically get together. Yeah.
Yes.
So what is it that we could do though? What are the things we could do?
Well, I'm prepared. I was thinking about this the other night. One of the things I'm prepared to do this now, and probably I don't know how long I'll be able to do it, but I want to make a concerted effort to do it, because out of this, many businesses will have gone to the wall, and many of those of my brothers and sisters will have gone to the wall. So I'm thinking about when this arises, if they're able to, these businesses run by people who look like me, sometimes I'll look at where it is in relation to where I live and say, I can't do that, man. Brixton, God, all the way. I want to give these people my money, you know, and I want to support them and keep them in business, but I can't get to Brixton Saturday. Yeah. I've got this, and this to do. Right? Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah. So you're going to put yourself out a little more.
I'm going to have to. And I think it's necessary because I want their businesses to exist. I want their businesses to thrive. And I want to put my money with my people.
Yeah. But it might be, Brother S, that, you know, it forces us to look at not just the core business, but our whole way of distributing. Because, you know, if online is where, you know, an increased amount of activity is going to be going on, then how do we collectively distribute online and get things? It may be that you don't have to go to Brixton. How can that brother or that sister be supported to create a distribution network that the products can come to you?
Yes, because I'll buy them.
Yeah, because I will too. Yeah.
And so that's one of the things I'm thinking about, making more of a concerted effort in supporting Black business.
Yeah,
is that if even they haven't done that yet, but that's something they want to do and they're planning to do, right? In order to better ensure their survival, I'm willing to jump in the car and say, let me just put on my music and just let me go. and just go and give them my money. Because my heart weighs heavy by too often when I go into a place and I'm invisible. It weighs heavy on my heart, trust me.
Yeah.
Right? I'm giving you my money and you
Yeah.
can't even see me.
Yeah.
It weighs heavy.
Yeah.
So I don't want to do it, but I know that I'm thinking, yeah, but Sin, if you just go in there and just get the thing, man, it saves you an hour and a half.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Because you've still got this and that to do, and you've only got Saturday and Sunday to get it done by.
Can
I need to be.
Yeah, can I pose a question to all three of you? Because you all work in kind of similar sectors with families.
Mm.
Do you think it's worthwhile for coming up with some kind of, whether it's online or whether it's books or whether it's kind of sessions, workshops, something around strengthening parenting in a kind of ethnocentric fashion to help young parents or even older parents to feel more confident in expressing their cultural perspective and reinforcing certain things within the home that would help them to maintain these wants and wishes in terms of keeping some of the reflective things that have happened as a result of the lockdown.
Mm-hmm.
You know, whether it's about cooking, whether it's about improving the quality of communication, whether it's about understanding stress on the family, whether it's about making different type of decisions about the jobs we go for so that somebody can be at home to, you know, receive the children from school or cook meals or whatever. Because these are the little foundational things, little building blocks that I think actually have been eroded. So because you're in those sectors, do you think that that's a worthwhile avenue of inquiry for you as a group of people? Because there's many people like you who are in health, children's services, mental health services, or whatever, who aren't necessarily bringing those skills to bear within their immediate communities.
I think it would be a worthwhile venture. Marketing would be a really significant thing with that one, because I think our community is, there's a percentage of our community who are very much westernized and don't necessarily adhere to the Afrocentricness or the Caribbean traditions, you know, life lessons and so forth. I do think it's a worthwhile venture, because it's something that I feel like it's essential. I mean, if we think about our own childhood and the lessons we've learned and the things that we've, you know, the one line that our parents would say to us, which has so much significance in our functioning as well. And you know, they really are a lot of our thoughts, feelings, and behaviours now. So I think it's a very much, it would really be a worthwhile venture. But certainly think that marketing would be a real serious consideration we need to give into that, because of, and many of us buy into the Western, you know, I think we'd all agree it's a huge section of our cultural traditions and existence that's missing.
As Ebony was speaking, I was thinking about excursions and how they used to be really important part of how we used to function every summer. So spring, we'd go on trips and we'd meet people, you know. It's hard to want to fight with people who you've had a relationship, you know, younger with. And, you know, whether it's christening, house parties, we know we're not going to get back to house parties. Maybe we will, I don't know. But marketing is important, but also helping people. And this is the point I was trying to make. I don't think that generally people who are just going about their everyday lives understand the little building blocks that all add up to making their life less stressful and safer. And given that you're in a particular field and you see these children and these families coming to you damaged, and you can see why it's broken down, how can we bring that experience to bear?
It's an important point, because a lot of them have no idea what it actually looks like.
Yes.
You're talking to them about something that they don't have a reference point for. I know how I was raised, and I'm guessing it will be similar for you guys, but they have no kind of cultural reference point that you can introduce that conversation with them. It's very, and they're plugged into stuff that's very, very different and light years away from the kind of life lessons that I was taught when I was growing up. And I can still hear many of them in the back of my head. I can hear my mother's voice, right? They haven't gone away. But those building blocks, as Kush talks about, they stay. But somebody has to be implanting them on a regular basis and within a context that makes sense to people. And I think there's so many of us who are living outside of that context. That you almost have to go right back to ground zero and reintroduce it to them.
Well, here's the thing. You make a good point there. All of you have made good points. I'm thinking here, look, for instance, this imposed lockdown. I would be interested to hear, when it's all done and dusted, how many stabbings of black on black young people there has been. Right? Because I'm suggesting, and I'm being premature about this, but I'm suggesting that I bet they'll find that there's a huge drop in the amount of black on black violence, right? So, which tells you something. That says that there's a collective consciousness then. Enough black youths, right, all decided at the same time, I'm scared of this unknown thing more than I am of staying on road and catching up with you and me and you catching up in knife war or gun war, right? They had to make a conscious decision about that. It wasn't by accident, right? And I would be really interested to see, of that, in that time that they've had to reflect, have they also been able to say, boy, look at that. Maybe we don't need to be like this towards one another. Right? Because I bet they've found other creative ways in which to get the drugs to one another, though, without having to take each other's life to do it. Because they're still smoking their little weed, they're still moving their, shifting their drugs around the place. They've been resourceful and found ways to do that without having to kill each other. But
there's also more parental and family oversight as well as they know if they're on the streets that the police, will stop them. So it may not just be a personal decision. The environment has changed now.
Well, whichever way it is, I'm hoping, again, that this is another catalyst in that brief period where they can hopefully tap into. Remember, if they're living on road and all their thing is about tomorrow, well, that's been taken away from them. So now they've got time on their hands. I'm hoping that the time that they've been given will also give them an opportunity to think a minute, like, whoa, wait a minute, you mean I was just living like that on a regular? And now it's been taken away from me and I'm in my yard. I recognize that's my mum. I recognize I've got siblings in there. I recognize maybe that's my dad. Boy, we've got to relate. We've got to find a way to be creative, to coexist in this space, because we got no choice. Surely that must.
That's true, but it's also as well about, even though this is a more comfortable way of doing it, but just what loss of freedom can actually mean. This is this is a very small kind of compared to being in a cell 23 hours a day, but it just gives you a bit of an introduction as to what it actually means to have your liberties taken away from you. Start on the street when you want to. And the way that I was behaving, I'm potentially signing up for 20 odd years of this. In a worse way. I don't really like how this feels.
So maybe I can be something different
Yeah.
when it's over.
Yeah.
Maybe there's more to life than what I was doing.
There is more.
Because I think in the moment and in the madness, they lack the capacity to be reflective.
Mm.
Yeah.
They just live. It's
Yeah.
hand to mouth. They just live. You understand?
So I'm gonna ask you
Mm.
all to, and to the listeners, to speak to their families and friends about how they can take some positives and see if they can cement those into everyday life, and we keep those things, that when the pressure is taken off and the lockdown is removed, that we don't spring and snap back into something else. I'm going to ask that this becomes the national conversation, really. Your neighbors, say, what is it that we can do? We need the ideas from everyone, really. Usually on the show, we say, what are we going to do differently? But what we're going to do with this now is have the conversation, and people, we welcome people's comments in the comment section on that. But before we close, I want to just kind of turn it now to say, well, how have you been having fun during this time? Obviously, children may be listening to the program at some point, so please.
Listen, I'm taking my lead from Ebony, because I heard that. Well,
having to be creative.
Miss said. Yeah.
What am gonna do?
Well. Anyway, I've been watching my son make brownies. He's been making brownies.
Your son?
Yes.
Okay.
So that's one of the ways, and I've been doing lots of stuff in the garden, and I've been going for walks every day. It's been great.
Yeah, man.
All of us collectively.
Doing,
Yeah, we go for a walk. Me, my wife, and my son. We go for a walk. It's been fantastic. We talk all the way, and we talk all the way home, and we go, boy, that was. Now that's the thing that we missed. I am aware that we didn't have time for that because we were always on our way to or on our way back from. We've kind of lived that existence. Now we can walk. We just can walk and talk in no hurry, with no rush. And it's great touching bases again and checking out how people are thinking and feeling. We're getting a barometer of how we're coexisting in the same way that I am aware that this imposition may be really difficult for some people who have come to the realization that actually maybe I don't even like you.
Yeah.
And that maybe when this is all over, I'm gone.
Yeah. It's been a mash up first.
Right? I think that it has. We've had to look at what we're in.
Yeah.
And what's it about? And do I want to stay in this?
Yeah. No, definitely.
Or am I kidding myself? And have I been unhappy for ages? And this has reinforced and confirmed it for me. And I need to do differently when it's all over.
Yeah. No, definitely.
Right. So I'm fortunate. I'm glad. I'm happy that I'm in a position where I'm happy, but at the same time that I'm also aware that even being present, sometimes I need to be more present. I need to be available present.
And it's so much enjoyable, isn't it? There is so much you can get from being present, and you rediscover that in times like this.
I'm still intrigued by what Ebony was giggling about.
Yeah, so am I.
Don't watch that. I'm not letting you off.
The walks have been good, haven't they, Kush-I? Yes.
Yeah. Well, as you know, I'm a walker. Everywhere we go, I walk. Get up, I walk. Go. But yes, it's definitely, being present, and it's it's, to use a cliche, it's the little things in life.
Yeah.
Even with going back to the food and people rushing out and then buying stuff. Actually, sometimes when you just look in the cupboard and you just throw things together and, there's a few of you there and you just eat a nice meal. That's just really, really enjoyable. And it's sharing, you know, that's a real kind of beneficial thing, you know, this kind of social living, doing things together and getting things done together. It's just absolutely exhilarating. Apart from that, I've been playing lots of FIFA, and I've released a documentary recently, which was really fun to see how that went. But in terms of like the home life, it's just doing the little things, man. Like you said, going out in the garden, or if you can go out and get some, like the weekend that we had with that son was just,
It was, yeah.
Huh?
No, I hear that. Do you know one of the things I've really, really enjoyed? Not having to cook against the clock. Take my time and just make what I want to make without having to look up at the clock and see how long I've got. Something else to do. Just to cook in a leisurely way.
Yes, man. Yes, man. Yes, man.
And I'd like to take this opportunity before we go also to big up and hail and to send my thoughts and prayers out to those people who have lost people during this period.
Oh yes, without a doubt.
Yes, be it because of the COVID or not, people have lost people. I'm aware of that. I've been receiving WhatsApps and
yes,
I was, you know, informing me of people who I know directly, and so I don't want this. I think each time we're on here, I'm gonna try and remember to.
Thank you for that, because there's a family friend close to me at the moment, an elder who was told at the weekend that he probably wouldn't survive, but he's holding on. So he's holding on. He seems to be defying the odds. So we're hopeful.
Okay.
And what I'd welcome people's comments in the comment section about people they've lost, and tell us some fun things about those individuals. You know, let's try and remember them in all their glory, you know, in a positive way, because one of the things that we have to do during this period is reduce our stress, and having a laugh is one way of doing that, a very positive way of doing that, and remembering people in a joyful way. It's really important.
Yeah.
Ebony, anything you want to say in closing?
No, I've just really enjoyed this discussion. Actually, it's been quite free-flowing, and we've covered quite a lot of our thoughts, and it's been a good discussion. And the question to be speaking with the ORT group again. It's been a few weeks. Wonderful. So it's always very wonderful and enlightening when we speak together and you know, share our minds and our thoughts and share those ourselves. Yeah. Wonderful.
All right. Well, take care of yourselves until the next time. We'll see each other next week. This will go live tomorrow. We'll be premiering it tomorrow. That's Thursday at 7 o'clock. So we'll be there from around 6:30 for any comments and so if people want to get into the chat. But yes, thank you all. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Be blessed, everyone.
Yes. Be blessed. Be blessed.
Stay safe, everybody.
Yes, and you too.
Included below are related links to this discussion. Please share, comment, and subscribe. And remember, talk the thing.